A very good afternoon to you wherever you are watching us from. I do hope your Sunday is going well so far. My name is Mukami Wambora. This is Citizen Weekend. Now, let's take a look at the day's headlines. Deputy President William Ruto defends his choice of wheelbarrow as symbol for his party as ODM party leader Raila Odinga camps in Western to woo voters. Pastoral communities in 21 drought-affected counties continue to count losses as livestock die. America marks 20 years since 9/11 bombing as Federal Investigative Bureau releases first report on the attack. Welcome once again to Citizen Weekend. Our top story today, leaders and elders from northeastern Kenya have called on the security agencies to produce Abdi Wahab Sheikh Abdi Samad, a scholar who was abducted along Turban Road in Nairobi's CBD by 4 men on Wednesday, failure to which top security officials in the country should resign. The leaders drawn from Wajir, Garissa, Mandera and Marsabit, who condemned the manner in which the scholar was abducted, have decried the cases of abductions in the country, saying there is need for the government to act and protect its citizens. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations boss George Kinoti on Friday launched a probe into the disappearance of Sheikh Abdi Wahab, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Horn of Africa Strategic Studies.
When someone is kidnapped at that time of the day, and at such a place, we cannot assume that it is anybody else, but it is the government's involvement. We have gathered here to urge government to produce Abdi Wahab the soonest possible. Not soonest, it should produce them immediately, so that if they have an issue with him, take him to court.
Nairobi is covered by CCTV. Remember, there was an entire government project of CCTV coverage in the entire city, both Nairobi and Mombasa. And so we expected them to be manning the national center and to know who did it and why is it happening.
People are killed every day. We have seen it on TV. We are tired. I think Mr. Matiangi, the CS for Interior, and Kibichu should take charge. Otherwise, should step aside if they cannot protect Kenyans.
How can somebody be abducted at 10 a.m. in the morning in broad daylight in the center of the city? This is unheard of, and it cannot be allowed. I am urging the security agencies to come out clean on this issue and bring back Professor Abdi Wahab as soon as possible or immediately.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi are among leaders attending the consecration and enthronement service of Reverend Rose Okeno as the Bishop of Butere Diocese. The ceremony is happening at Butere grounds. Let's listen in.
Your Grace, just before I read my charge, kindly allow me to recognize the following 3 people who tremendously contributed to my growth as a person and as a ministry. First, I want to recognize my late father, Evangelist Jackson Anyangu, who went to be with the Lord, and my mother Mary Anyangu, who is here today with us. Mama wanje Mary Anyangu, alano nasi nende abana befu muri muno kwitsa nende abandu bosi abeshibanga. My father, the late evangelist Jackson Anyangu, brought me up as a Christian and a God-fearing child, and I cannot do this charge without giving that special recognition to him. Allow me also to recognize and appreciate my late husband, the Okeno, the late Reverend Elishama Okeno, supported our ministry, and he went first before us to be with the Lord. May his soul rest in peace. And lastly, I want to remember and recognize my sister, my colleague, my twin sister, a great friend of mine whom we were ordained at the same time as deacons in this diocese, the Venerable Dina Nyakoa Nandua, who went to be with the Lord, and her family is represented here by Mr. Wilfred Nandua and all the entire family. May the soul of the Venerable Dina Nandua rest in peace.
Well, that is Rose Okeno, Kenya's first ever female bishop. Laura Otieno, our reporter, is on ground in Butere and will give us more information and more updates in our subsequent bulletins at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Let's move on. Deputy President William Ruto has challenged the youth to stand up and be counted in the 2022 general election. The DP, who attended a Sunday church service at the Global Cathedral Church in Langata, said the hustler movement holds the aspirations and hopes of the youth in the country, and that the country's next leadership will come from the hustler movement.
The hustler movement has actually created a revolution in Kenya. That today, the hustler movement has transcended communities and regions and is the largest movement in Kenya of very ordinary people. And many people did not expect that the next leadership of Kenya is going to come from the most unlikely quarter of the hustler movement. 70% of our nation is the young people. In their hands, in their talents, in their effort, in their knowledge, is the solution to the challenges that we face as a nation. And they need to stand up and be counted as the young people of our nation.
Lugari Member of Parliament Ayub Savula has implored ODM leader Raila Odinga to use his cordial working relations with President Uhuru Kenyatta to revive the Mumias sugar factory, saying the residents are suffering. Savula says the residents were tired of empty promises by leaders who were dangling the Mumias card to get votes, and that in 2022 they would make an informed choice. His Kakamega counterpart Cleophas Malala also told of the ODM party leader, saying his visit to Kakamega thrived on politics and not the livelihood of the people.
I want to tell Raila Odinga, Luhyas will not live on promises. We want Mumias sugar ifunguliwe kama jana. Tumia nafasi ya handshake, ukikaa na Uhuru ufungue Mumias Sugar Company. Usije kutuambia ati wewe piga kura kwanza ndio tutafungua Mumias Sugar Company. We are not babies. Sisi watoto. Na sisi jamii ya Muleme raundi hii tutakufa na mheshimiwa Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi.
Na Waluya wote wamsikie tu Raila. Raila akitembea leo nimewaona ametembea na mapolisi sijui 1000. Sasa mimi nashangaa umekuja kuongea na Waluya ama umekuja kuongea na polisi? Sasa wewe umeongelesha polisi ukarudi kwenyu. Sisi tutakuambia kwamba sisi tulishachoka bana na mambo ya ODM. Western region is totally locked behind ANC. Tuko nyuma ya Musalia Mudavadi na hatutaruhusu kwamba jamii yetu ikuwe inachezewa kila uchao.
Pastoralists in Garissa County are now calling on the government to step up efforts of rolling out the offtake program to cushion them against huge losses occasioned by drought in the region. Pastoral communities in the 21 affected counties are experiencing huge losses as animals die, and those that survive are losing weight owing to long distances they have to cover in search of water and pasture. The livestock farmers say that despite ongoing efforts to ensure water reaches them in the interior parts of the county, lack of pasture still remains a challenge as they continue to lose livestock.
Tuseme for the last 2 months kulikuwa na ukame kali. Vile mnaona hapa, ngamia peke yake ndio inaweza fika hapa. Ng'ombe, mbuzi wala punda hazifiki hapa. Kama kilomita 20 ama 25 ndio watu wanaenda kuchukua maji kutoka hapa mpaka msituni.
When you address the water, you are missing another component. You are missing pasture. You are missing veterinary services. So with lack of pasture, when animals are underfed, a lot of diseases creep in. And that's now what you are suffering from.
Youth are being urged not to be misused by leaders to cause violence as the country heads to next year's general elections. Speaking at the Naja Islamic Center in Malindi town on Saturday evening, Al-Azhar scholars from Egypt called on the youth to be ambassadors of peaceful coexistence. Muddar Ahmed Badawai, who is the chairman of the Al-Azhar graduates, has challenged youth to shun drug abuse so that they can be productive members of society. He says empowered and disciplined youth are the bedrock of economic growth.
Dini ndio amani. Sikwambia Uislamu, dini yoyote ni dini. Hakuna dini inamwambia mtu nenda ukalewe. Hakuna dini inamwambia mtu nenda ukazini. Hakuna dini inamwambia mtu nenda kaibe. Dini misingi yake ni amani, na hawa tumeletewa bure.
Kihakika unajua, mtu asipofahamu itikadi yake vyema anaweza akapotoka na akapotoshwa, na huku akijua kwamba hivi ndivyo sawa, na wakati pengine anapewa mafundisho si sahihi. Kwa ajili hiyo, hili tunaishi nalo katika ulimwengu mzima, ni tatizo tunaishi nalo ulimwengu mzima la watu kupotoka ama kupotoshwa kwa kutofahamishwa dini yao vizuri. Kwa hiyo hii ni mchango au huu ni mchango mkubwa sana katika kuchangia vijana au jamii kufahamu dini yao vizuri ili waweze kupractice dini yao vizuri.
Since the passage of the new constitution in 2010 and the implementation of devolution, clan leaders have played a central role in determining election outcomes in northeastern Kenya. The Gelbaris community have endorsed Major Rtd Abdikadir Shabelo for the flag bearer of Wajir North constituency seat come 2022. At an event that was attended by Council of Elders led by its chair, Brigadier Ahmed Mohammed, the community led the endorsement process. The community now will seek votes from other Arjuran living in the constituency.
Nominated Major Rtd Abdikadir Shabelo to be the Gelbaris candidate flag bearer for the Wajir North parliamentary seat in the next elections in 2022.
Safari ni ndefu, tutakutana na maheka mingi, lakini tukiwa pamoja, tukue kitu moja kama jamii na tutembee pamoja, tushikane mkono, hiyo safari itakuwa rahisi sana na hiyo kitu tutapata.
Stakeholders in the fight against FGM are calling for policy review in the fight if the fight in the country is to continue and achieve its goal of eradicating female genital mutilation by 2022. Speaking at Kenya School of Government, Cabinet Director Solomon Letangule said eradicating FGM by 2022 is becoming a tall order due to the rigidity of most communities to discard the cultural practice. He called for intensive civic education among communities, even as the law takes its course. Other anti-FGM crusaders called for additional funding for outreach activities.
the various cultures, the people in the community hold these cultural practices so dear to them. Sometimes there are also, emotional attachments to these cultures, and therefore there's need for us to adopt a consultative, a collaborative approach where we have dialogue with these communities, because through this retrogressive vice is actually a cultural thing that dates back to several centuries ago.
Most girls have not gone to school. Most girls are still being subjected to these retrogressive cultures like female genital mutilation and child marriages. So the lack of these institutions has really limited girls from achieving their dreams in life. One of the reasons that makes us not achieve this by 2022 is the approaches that we've been using before. Some of these approaches were biased. Some of these approaches were not workable in a setup that is entirely patriarchal. For example, without involving the men in this fight, we've realized that we are not going to finish FGM. So this time round, we are twisting the approaches in such a way that it will enable the entire community to own this project in ending FGM.
Relatives of people who died on 9/11 read out victim names as the U.S. marked 20 years since the deadliest terror attacks on its soil. Many struggled to hold back tears at the ceremony held at Ground Zero, the site of the Twin Towers destroyed in the attacks by Al-Qaeda militants. A minute's silence was held at the exact same time each hijacked plane crashed. George W. Bush, who was the U.S. president at the time, gave a speech in Pennsylvania where one of the planes crashed into a field after passengers overpowered the hijackers. At the memorial in New York, President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden were joined by former President Bill Clinton.
Come on. Anyway, so I just think that, and again, what people are, as I read it, I'm told, 70% of American people think it was time to get out of Afghanistan, spending all that money. But the flip of it is, they didn't like the way we got out. But it's hard to explain to anybody, how else could you get out?
When it comes to the unity of America, those days seem distant from our own. Malign force seems at work in our common life that turns every disagreement into an argument, and every argument into a clash of cultures. So much of our politics has become a naked appeal to anger, fear, and resentment. That leaves us worried about our nation and our future.